afternoon, everybody. Calm Biker here. Just heading home from Lincolnshire. Been out and about looking at my radio bits and pieces that if you've seen my last few videos you'll know about. I thought I would do a quick video about something that I've been having a chat with somebody about recently, and about something that's been of concern to me since March. So in March was when I got punted off the Honda, myself and Mrs. C, and the Honda got written off. And of course, one of the first things you have to do, well, I mean the first thing I had to do was go to hospital, but once I'd finished doing that and gone home, the following morning the key thing for me to do was to call my insurance company and tell them what had happened, and you know, start the claim process off. And from that point onwards, I've been slightly worried about what would this mean for my insurance from now on, because of course I've now got to answer a question in a way I've never answered it before. And the question that I'm going to be asked is, well, the question I was going to be asked, I've been asked it since, but the question I was going to be asked was, have you been in an accident in the past however many years, 5 years I think it is, and have you made a claim in the last 5 years? And for my entire driving and motorcycling career, the answer to that has been no. I've never made a claim, and I've never had an accident in that amount of time. I have had an accident when I was much younger in a company car, but never in a car that I've owned, and it was too long ago. Anyway, detail, Richard, going off topic. So that was worrying me. Now it came around to about June, and I got a letter through the post, which was a bit of a weird one, because my Honda had been written off and I hadn't replaced it. So my insurance was running out on a bike that I didn't even have anymore, that I assumed the insurance had actually been cancelled on anyway, or you know, ended naturally, whatever would happen. But they said your insurance is coming up for renewal, and here's your quote. To which of course I rang them and said, you know, well, I haven't got the bike anymore, you wrote it off and cancelled the insurance, and all was good from there. But it added to my concerns, because the quote that came through was for more than 3 times what I was paying for the Honda previously, and that was scary, because the Z1000 costs more to insure than the Honda. Granted, the Z1000 hasn't lost its no claims bonus, but then the Honda didn't have much of a no claims bonus anyway, because it was on a separate policy that I'd not had for a long time. So I was thinking, is my Z1000 insurance going to triple as well? In the event, it hasn't. In the event, weirdly, it's £150 cheaper than it was last year. I said to Mrs. C, it's come down by 150 quid. I should have more accidents. She didn't agree with that. Quite strongly didn't agree. But I was explaining this to a couple of people I've been chatting to since, and one of them said, well, how can this be? And it makes complete sense to me, but I know that it's a topic of extreme confusion and or anger for a lot of other people. And it's one of those where human emotions are one thing and logic and mathematics are completely a different matter. And it's actually quite easy how insurance works. I hear the complaint of, I've had an accident, it wasn't my fault, and my insurance has gone up. And in my case, I've had an accident, it's yet to be determined whose fault it was, and my insurance has gone down. It might have been able to go down further, by the way. I didn't do a comparison because the comparison sites didn't have an option on the question whose fault was the accident to put that it hasn't been established yet. So I actually just went back to the old insurance company. But anyway, how they calculate it's really easy. You've got to imagine a table, but not a two-dimensional table, a massively multi-dimensional table. Now if you imagine it was a one-dimensional thing, if there was only one thing that affected insurance, let's say that thing was age, because age matters. In insurance they are ageist, and rightly so. But age matters, so they might have a table that is basically just a list of ages, and they might say let's do it age, I don't know, if it's for bikes it might be from 16, mightn't it? So they might do 16 to 18, 19 to 21, 22 to 25, and all the ages up to death. They don't insure dead people, I believe, so it would stop just before that. They might do it in that way. They probably don't. They probably have many more options. They probably have options for every year, maybe every month. They might be down to 16 in one day, who knows. But that's your one-dimensional table. Now, I think people think that they then start with a high number at the beginning and tail off as you get older, and maybe then start to increase it again as you get even older, into your old age, when people's reaction time starts to slow down. But then it's a trade-off potentially between your reaction times when you're a bit older and your experience, which obviously accounts for a lot, compared to when you're very young, where your reaction times may well be better but your experience is almost nothing, only because you've not had a chance to build up any experience yet. But they don't just say let's start with a big number at the beginning, work our way down and back up again. What they do is they look at how many accidents people have in each of those categories, and they'll create a weighting. So if 16-year-olds have more accidents, then they'll have a heavier weighting and a higher premium. However, that'll be offset by another dimension in the table, which is the value of the machine. So if you're in a, well, I was going to say in a car, but let's stick to motorbikes here. If you're on a £500 scooter that you bought second hand and it's really old, so it's cheap, then that will tend to bring the insurance down. Whereas if you're on a Kawasaki H2, that'll tend to push your insurance upwards. And again, they don't just say, well, we'll do it like that. They'll say people in all these in this category where these two dimensions cross. So a 17-year-old with an H2, £1 million. Apart from the fact they can't ride one in this country, but but it's all based on how many accidents they have, and crucially, what the likely cost of that accident will be. And then you start to add more and more dimensions. How many no claims bonus years have they got will come into it. How long have they been riding a bike? Because you might be 40 but you've only got 1 year of experience versus somebody who's 25 with 5 years of experience. They also put into things like how long have you been driving a car, how many accidents have you had in the car, how many accidents have you had in total in the last few years, how many claims have you made, and many more. Every question they ask you on that form is putting you in a different box in that table. By the way, I know this from working for banks who do insurance, so you're in that box with other people, and here's where the anger starts, because you say, I was parked outside of where I worked, I wasn't even in the car, I was parked illegally, somebody clipped me, and now I've got to make a claim on my insurance, and my insurance has gone up. That's not fair. And in purely human, emotional ways, it's true. It isn't fair, is it? It's just not fair that something that wasn't your fault costs you more money. It's also not fair, and I know we have a lot less sympathy for the big companies, but it's also not fair for the insurance company. It's not their fault that you got clipped either. And they could easily make that argument that, well, we have to pay out all this money to repair your bike or your car. And that's not fair, but that's the risk we take. And it's also the risk you take by driving or riding or whatever it might be and parking at the side of the road. But the reality is that you have moved yourself when you got clipped from being in a box where you're in a box of people who haven't been clipped to the side of the road, entirely not their fault, into a box with people who have been clipped at the side of the road, and it being not their fault. But some of those people are in that box with you are people who park like an ultimate moron. The people who park at the side of the road, blocking the pavement, and have somebody push a pram scratching the side of the car and they claim it on insurance because it scratched every panel. Or the people who park in stupid places at the edge of bends and things where you probably shouldn't really park at all, but people still do. But it means that they are more likely to be hit, even though you might not be more likely to be hit. They are, and unfortunately, you're now in a box with those people. And once you've got in a box with all these many thousands of people that are also in that box, and these boxes are shared by all the insurance companies. It's not like you just go to a small insurance company and get away with it. They are shared by all the insurance companies, these calculations of how they do it. Because you're in that box with people who aren't careful. Yes, on a emotional level it's not fair, but on a logical level you are more likely, on average, of people in that box to be hit again. So your insurance policy has that potential of going up. But from my experience this time round, it didn't go up for me. It was quite strange. I was talking to the chaps on my team to see if any of them had been in accidents, and one of them had and said his insurance went up, and one of them said he had been in an accident, and he admitted it's completely his fault, not paying enough attention. He just drove straight into the back of somebody who either slowed down or stopped in front of him. Completely his fault, no argument in it at all, 100% his fault. I said, what effect did that have on your insurance? He went, came down by about 100 quid. So it is a weird one. Maybe that actually suggests that people who've been in one accident perhaps are more careful than people who've been in none. You know, there's a logical argument there, isn't there? If you've been in one, you might be more careful. You might stop doing the thing that caused the accident. I know in the case of mine, I was filtering, and I've not stopped filtering. But I'm definitely hyper aware now when I'm filtering. And there are certain types of filtering that I now judge as not worth it. And as you've seen, I'm not the sort of person who filters like Royal Jordanian at silly speeds in and out of traffic that can't see me. I tend to try and do the safe filtering anyway. But there are certain things now that I'm much more wary of doing. So you might make that argument that potentially I am now safer than I was before, and I might be a better bet for the insurance companies. Who knows? Anyway, I thought it made an interesting little topic. Let me know what you think in them there comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ride safe, and I shall talk to you all again soon.